everybody doing today? The fucking here, let me share my screen really quick. The fucking sky is falling. Bitcoin ETH Sol down 6-7% today. Is it fucking over? No, if you've been watching these streams, you know you know that this is just part of the process. We'll be talking about obviously about everything going on right now with price, but we have a lot of other exciting things to talk about. We have a special guest today for Loco's buddy Ben, who has a. I have a little bit of description here for him, but he has a Ben Lin. He has a career in investment banking and private equity. Manages a fund focused on public equities and international investors. So we're stoked to have him. Nice to have a little bit of different perspective on international markets. We'll be talking about tariffs, maybe a little bit about technical analysis I wanted to touch on, and a lot more. But before we start, if you guys could please just like, share, comment on the stream so we can get this out to more people. I'm about to post it in the Telegram chat right now. But usually, how we start the stream before we get into all the meat and potatoes, I'm gonna have my boy Rotes here do a little bit of a review of the past few days, and then we'll go and get started. Rotes, you want to take it away, buddy?
So yeah, the last, let's say, 12 hours has been pretty volatile. We had kind of a flash kind of dump on Bitcoin. There's about $12 billion worth of Bitcoin options that are expiring today, so that can cause some additional volatility. Um, with that, like, I mean, a lot of these cases are essentially buy the dip scenarios, or our mid long term is still extremely bullish. We're in a downtrend at the moment, so until we really break out of that downtrend, you're still up in a caution. You want to be in spot. You don't want to leverage up anything like that. Warren slam stablecoin, ironic, coming from Warren, but stablecoin bill as Trump Elon enrichment kind of ploy. So that's interesting. But Elizabeth Warren always making the great trades. Maybe she knows more than all of us. Silk Road 2.0, Ross Albright teases possibility of Silk Road 2.0. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if that's positive, negative, what that scenario is. You think he would learn from the last one, but we'll see. GameStop plans to buy 1.3 billion in additional or in Bitcoin. So they're working towards that. I think this is a perfect move for them. I think they need to really lean into the memification of their stock. AI agents market cap is
Looks
up
like the investor
to
didn't like that one,
6.22
huh,
billion.
Rhodes? Sorry.
It is actually down over the last 24 hours, but up since we last talked about it. NFT volume kind of low, especially when you look at Solana and Ordinals. Ordinals kind of the lowest level I've seen in a while. Quantum Cats are the lone winner though on Ordinals, up 10%. They just had the Taproot Wizard mint out 0.2 Bitcoin per Ordinal that they minted out. Creeps up 9.6% to 1.94 ETH, and Opepin up 8% to 0.16. Memecoin side of things, everything is red, reacting to the macro market and the major market. But over the last week, we see positivity in Dogecoin up 7.8% to 26.5 billion, down 6.7 over the last 24 hours. Farcoin is up 36% over the last week, up to 500 million. SPX 6900 up 20% over the last week to 487 million. And I couldn't find a February price prediction market yet April. I'm going in reverse. But a April price prediction market for Bitcoin. But right now, if you look at it, 5% for 75K. I think the sentiment out there would say that that's probably more like 50%. Everyone's believing we're going to zero. So, but interesting to see what everyone has to say, and I take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rotes. Always love the review. And if you're new to the streams, we love to make this stream as interactive as possible. Make the chat a part of the show. So if you have any comments, questions, definitely leave them in the chat, and we'll be looking at that. What's up, Cody? What's up, Ethan? What's up, Drago? What's up, Alphabel Dark? What's up, everybody here? What's up, Max? How you doing, brother?
Good, man. I'm just saying hi to Andre. I'm looking at the stream here.
Hell yeah. And then, so we do have a guest today, Ben. What's up, Ben? How you doing, brother?
Hello, everybody.
It's gonna be a little confusing here today, guys. We have Bren and Ben. I think maybe we should make a different name for one of us, so you don't
Let's
get
let's
confused.
just call you Jack today.
Jack. All right, I'm Jack, and we got Jack and then Ben. But Ben, we're stoked to have you on here, man. How are you doing today? First of all,
Doing good. How you guys doing? Can you hear me okay?
yeah, can hear you perfect. You guys can hear him.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Ben, good
Awesome.
to see you, man. Thanks for
Yes,
joining
you
us
too.
today.
Thanks for joining us,
Yeah,
Ben. Your loco told me some great things about you. Did a little bit of an intro, of you, Brit there, just a few words. But do you want to give us a little bit of your background? How long you've been in the finance and investing game, and where you kind of first started?
yeah, absolutely. So, I was born and raised in China. I came to the States in 2010. Went to school at SMU in Texas. After that, I worked as an investment research analyst at a hedge fund in Dallas, Texas. And then I worked at a private equity shop. Shortly after, in 2017, I moved to San Francisco and I worked at a venture capital firm. That's when met Fernando. And we became really good friends
For
ever since
Loco.
then. Yeah, but yeah, it was a good time. And in 2020, that's when I decided to open my own shop because I've always had a passion in public investing, and then my specialties have been in equity long short. So we started a family office, mostly investing for family and friends, and in the U.S. domestic public market as well as China's stock market. So yeah, it's been almost 5 years since we started.
Right on, man. Awesome. Um, Love to hear that. And that's so you got you in for Loco Matt. How long ago?
We met maybe like 2017, right, Fernando? Maybe like 8 years,
Yeah,
eight to
I
nine
think
years.
we probably made it to close to 10 years now,
Yeah,
and the
almost 10
story is super
years.
interesting because yeah, we actually met doing a program in Silicon Valley, and the interesting part of things is that we didn't know anything about each other because that was kind of like an interesting time to meet people. Uh, and the cool thing about it is, when I learned that Ben had this super, I guess, international background, and we shared the same passion. We try to stay connected almost every other week about the markets. And I thought it would be super interesting to have his perspective and experience from international markets, especially China, as there's a lot of things happening right now with tariffs and everything. So if you
Yeah,
guys, we can kind of like do a little bit of a deep dive on how the U.S. macro versus international economies are doing, and then obviously we have Max as well here, which he's also an expert. So it'll be cool to hear both, I guess, contrasting views of how we see the economy, Chinese economy, and the world economy from the U.S. versus like how what other people think outside of our little bubble, right? Because we live in this bubble where we believe we're the number one and everything, but when you actually exit that bubble, you realize that other countries are also moving pretty fast. So Brent, do you think, or I guess Jack, do you think that's a good way to conduct the show today?
Absolutely, brother. I love how you broke that down. I think that'll be great. Great little contrast, like you said. I was thinking of starting. What do you think we should start with? Like the tariffs, like what's going on there. Um, I think that's what I was thinking about starting. What do you think, Loco?
Yeah, that's fine. Look, Ben, I guess you and I had a little bit of a combo last week about this, but
yeah.
what do you think the tariff situation, and how do you think that's affecting the U.S. and particularly as well with the trade war with China from your perspective?
Yeah, so I actually have a lot to say on this topic, but I try to keep it concise. In my opinion, we look at the headlines every day, right? It's tariff this and tariff that. There's like 25% tariff on auto. It literally just happened yesterday. I think what happens this is, in my opinion, of course, everybody has their own perspective. I think a tariff is just a smoke screen, right? What really matters in the long term is not tariff, is how the economy is growing and how we're managing our current national debt. I think tariff is actually a really good strategy for Trump to use in order to put us into this mini recession because we do have a lot of problems as a nation that need to be solved. If you look at what are the Trump's major focuses when he came into office, the first thing is that he wants to reduce national debt. He wants to cut the budget deficit, right? And then the second thing is he wants to reduce the interest rate. The last but not least is to control inflation. And there's only one way that it can achieve all three things simultaneously. That is to create a short-lived recession. And tariffs definitely help in that regard. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. So please, feel free to stop me if you say, "Oh, this guy is speaking nonsense," right? So yeah, so we all know that we are in a state where the national debt is at a very unhealthy level. We went from $22 trillion in 2020 to 36 trillion of national debt today, and we're still growing about 5.8% per year, and our GDP is only growing at the real rate about 2.5%. So if this trend continues to grow in a couple of years, it's very likely that we won't be able to even pay the interest on the debt. And in that case, the dollar is going to very likely to lose its reserve status. So Trump is doing everything he can to stop that from happening. So from a long-term economic perspective, I think that's actually a really good move to make at this point in time. Um, and then a lot of people are worrying about the tariffs, how that's going to affect the consumption. But I think the consumers actually have shown signs of weakness since last year. So the reason why I know that, because I do follow like almost like 200 different consumer discretionary companies, and I read their earnings report. Almost all of them cut their guidance even before the tariffs were announced, and most of it doesn't have to do with the tariff. It has to do with consumers losing their purchasing power. A lot of consumers, like if you are a consumer of a grocery company, you're not going to wake up one day, look at a tariff, and say, "Okay, I'm not going to buy groceries because I don't think it's going to affect the groceries." No, you don't want to buy those stuff, the discretionary stuff, because your purchasing power cannot keep up with the inflation. I think that's the real problem underneath the headlines. And what tariffs does is just it creates this uncertainty in the market where people are trying to take off the risky bets, and also it reduces the liquidity that's in the market, that's been growing in the past 3, 4 years, during Biden's administration. Let me know if anything I said makes any sense. So in terms of the tariff with China, I think China has been prepared for this tariff for almost 5 years, ever since COVID. So that's why if you go to China right now, China is very self-sufficient. They don't really need any, like support or export from the US. China is actually the largest trading partner with most of the countries in the world. China has more trading partners than the US right now. Um, and they have really good relationships with Europe. They have really good relationship with the Middle East. So their reliance on the US is getting smaller every single year. The biggest problem for China right now is not US. It's actually domestically how are they going to manage the aging problem? So in China, if you guys don't know, they have a very serious aging problem where the median age of a household went from 37 years old, actually 36 years old before COVID, to 41 years old now. And if you look at its neighboring countries, just Vietnam. Hello?
Yeah, you there?
You're cutting in and out, but
Yeah, someone just called me. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries, you're good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, if you look at the neighboring countries like India, their median age is about 28. So they're way, way younger than China. And then, the demographics is the representation of how much the company's going to grow into the future because it's part of the workforce. And China needs that younger workforce because it's still the largest manufacturing hub in the world. And that's why China is pushing so hard for AI. It's kind of off topic here, but China is really competing with the US in terms of AI because they want to use AI as a tool to really increase the productivity in the nation. Um, and whereas in the US, it's a little bit different story because AI here is really used to kind of boost the overall growth. AI is a part of the GDP to really push up the overall GDP growth because the US is not growing as fast as the administration wanted, to really pay off its national debt over the long term. But that's just my point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Ben, and I appreciate you breaking that down. So from your perspective, I guess, you've been, pretty much aware of the international and Chinese markets since, I guess you started your fund and even before that. But China was undergoing a recession and tightening for a while with what happened with real estate market over there and gold. And so how do you think they dealt with that to be in a position where right now they're kind of like growing faster than the US? What do you think the steps that they did while, I guess, during the last 3 to 5 years?
Okay, so I don't think China is growing faster than the US in any regard. I think the reason why people are starting to invest in China because they look at the valuation of the comparable companies in China, like Alibaba versus Amazon. The valuation just so much cheaper. At the end of the day, the entry point of any investment matters, right? And then how we measure entry point is the valuation versus some other comparable companies. So in China, because all those companies have been left out for years. If you look at the Chinese Hang Seng stock market, it hasn't moved in 10 years, where US market in the past 10 years went up 3 times, right? So that creates a huge valuation gap between the world's largest economy and the second largest economy. And then now, because the risk
Mhm.
off phenomena is happening in the US, a lot of capital are looking for elsewhere to invest their risky assets. And then they see China as a better alternative because the valuation is much cheaper. And then the other thing about the growth in China is you have to understand that China's recession is not caused by any sort of economic slowdown. It's artificially manufactured by the government. And they did it like exactly like what Trump is doing right now. You guys remember the 2021, the Chinese government cracked down the tech sector and how they cracked down the real
Yeah.
estate sector? Yeah.
Hmm.
So the reason why they're doing all that because simply because first the aging problem, and then you have to consider why the median age in China went up from 37 to 40 because they're not having kids. That's the problem. People that get married or they don't get married, they don't have kids. The reason why they don't have kids because they can't afford to have kids in major cities like Shanghai. For example, if you look at the real estate price in Shanghai, it takes an average worker, like a blue collar or white collar, whatever you call it, 20 years time and not spend a single cent to be able to afford to buy a 200 square feet condo in Shanghai and not just to buy it in full, just to pay the down payment. So the property
Hmm.
price to disposable income ratio is the highest in major cities in China, and then that's common across the board in some other countries like Canada or US, but it's more severe in China. So the government had
Hmm.
to do what it takes to really bring down the real estate price, to make it more affordable for younger people for them to have a family and have kids. Because that's good for the long term. And that's also why they're cracking down the tech sector, because the tech sector was absorbing too much capital and the people in the tech sector buying real estates kind of push up the price in major cities like Hangzhou, which is the tech hub in China, where Alibaba comes from, and Shanghai. So all those things are really artificially manufactured by the government. It was purposely designed to benefit the society over the long haul. So if you
Hmm.
look at
That's great.
from that,
Uh, yeah.
yeah, from that perspective, that offers you some different opinions.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to touch on a few points, but I definitely want to bring in Max in this conversation as well and hear his thoughts, particularly on tariffs, manufacturing, AI, and EV vehicles, right? Because I think those are the topics that you're seeing different companies, whether it's Tesla or BYD, manufacturing AI with DeepSeek and OpenAI. There's definitely a competition race happening across those sectors. So I don't know, Max, Ben, do you guys want to kind of like talk a little bit about those and the difference between what you guys think the US and China, how would they be, I guess, facing it in the next few years?
Uh, this is Mike. Yeah, I'm happy to exchange ideas. I think what Ben outlined is fairly succinct in the issues that certainly China is facing. Ben may not know this, but we built a social science over the last few decades called demogranomics, which is demography and economics blended. And one of the major points has always been the one child policy that lasted for 28 years in China. A few years ago, they started softening that a little bit. But what is now being understood is when you do that for 28 years, and on top of that, the person chosen when more than one child is born was almost notoriously the male for many of those years. What you now have is not only a lot of people missing, but you also have massive areas of China, and I'm sure Ben knows this, where there are a ton of marrying age men, but there are no marrying age women. And so what is happening is that's why you now have this massive, uh, let's call it underperformance in creating children, because unfortunately, you still need a male and a female to create one, and there's a huge mismatch in China. In fact, our stats show that there's more 80-year-olds than there are 10-year-olds in China. The demographic event that Ben is properly describing has decades to go before it can possibly be fixed. And it is going to get much, much worse. I don't think China has any idea. They're working hard. As Ben has pointed out, they're working hard internally, but I don't think they have any idea how bad it's going to get. So if they're feeling self-sufficient right now, uh, it's a sunset problem, not a sunrise problem. But and it'll be driven by people, solely a people event. Demographics is going to cause a tremendous weight. Um, I also agree with Ben that the tariffs are a smokescreen. I think we've said that a lot, guys. We called it something different, but tariffs are a sledgehammer, and the goal is to there's only a couple of goals. Make sure trade deals are fair, and bring down the cost of debt so that things can be refinanced. And you combine that with what Doge is doing, and I think we're going to find when all the fighting settles out and the dust settles, another, I don't know, call it 3 quarters, maybe it's the end of the year. But by the time we roll into next year, here's what we're going to find. We're going to find the United States of America, believe it or not, has been operating under what would have been a balanced budget for decades, other than the theft and criminal activity from our elected officials.
Absolutely. So, Max, you would say, and I'm sure Furlico has a lot more in-depth questions here, just in regards to what you just said. But as we were talking about before, I mean, Ben might have an opposite opinion, but you think that even though what Ben was saying, that there's a valuation gap between the U.S. and
Yeah.
China, that the U.S., S&P 500, all the indexes still outperform the
Yeah.
China indexes over the next.
Ben is right. There is a huge valuation gap. But and Ben has a great pedigree. He's done a lot of great work. Uh, the only issue I would add is I've been doing this 43 years this August, and you know what I've heard for about 25 of those years is that China has a great valuation difference, and my hunch is in 25 more years I'm going to hear that China has a great valuation difference. Just because there's a valuation difference does not mean it all equals up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Ben, because obviously, as you mentioned, there's an aging population in China, but I think Europe is undergoing the same, and I don't know if the U.S. with immigration is doing a little bit better, but I wonder how that's going to affect manufacturing and everything as we see, and as you mentioned, China has the most trading partners in the world. So it's not reliant on the U.S. even if this trade war were to continue for longer. So I guess based on what Max said, what are your thoughts, Ben? What do you think that's going to happen?
Can I say one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Europe real quick before. Sorry, Ben, I don't want to interrupt you. I know we chatted about China, but here's the bad news for Europe. If you look at demographics, in one more generation, Europe will be half its size. In 2 more generations, Italy will almost not exist. They are paying you 25,000 euro to come to Italy and have a child. You can make 25 grand in euro to go have a kid in Italy, and they will give you a house. So trust me, Europe is in a whole lot of demographic trouble. They make China look like a walk in the park.
Absolutely. And real quickly, I do want to hear Ben's thoughts on that. But we do have 800 people already on here at 30 minutes through, or really 20 minutes through. We started a little bit late. Usually we, have half of this even on a great stream. So love to see everybody on here. If you guys could like, comment, retweet the stream so we can get this out to more people. I think this is a great conversation as the market's kind of going down. A lot of times when we get these corrections in the U.S. markets, a lot of times people look to international markets, whether international markets are the place to look, U.S. markets, all that. So love this conversation going on here. Sorry to interrupt, Ben. I know you probably have some thoughts on what was just said.
No, no worries, Max. You were definitely right on the point. Unfortunately, I'm one of those males that was born in China, and one of the males who's also still single, by the way. So yeah, it's a problem across the board. I don't think it's just in China or in other developed countries. It's everywhere. The aging problem, the people not having kids, not getting married, it's a problem that every country is facing, and I think it's not something that we can even think about a solution to it because there's so many nuances that's built into it. A lot of it has to do with a new generation, the new ideology that's built into their mindset. So that's a different topic for another day. But sorry, I have to go back to your question. So what was your question again, Fernando? I think you asked
My
about
question.
something about.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was just wondering if your thoughts on the aging population, and you mentioning that China has many other, trading partners aside from the U.S. How that's going to be affecting with the current trade wars? How is it going to be affecting the economy in China,
Right,
particularly as
right.
this develops? Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, yeah. So, I think one of the main goals for China is to really transition from a export-driven, manufacturer-driven economy to a more like a consumptive-driven economy that's more self-reliant, right? So they don't want it to be very much dependent on some other countries' trade policies or some other countries', economic growth. So they kind of want to have to build an ecosystem where they're able to get resources from neighboring countries that are just sufficiently like supply themselves. Also that's also why they're so heavily invested in AI. It's actually funny, just give you an anecdotal story. I was talking with my mom the other day, and all she talked to me about was AI and AI stock. And I was like, Mom, how do you know so much about AI? And she was like, every time I get on TikTok or Rednote, everything on there is AI related. Everybody's talking about AI. So that's just go to show
Mhm.
you how big it is in China. AI is literally the top priority. But the difference is, in my opinion, again, I'm not an expert in AI or anything, but from what I'm hearing, I think AI in China is more focused on B2B, whereas AI in the US
Mhm.
right as at the moment is more focused on B2C. So
Mhm.
in my opinion, B2C, when it comes to application, B2C is more commoditized. If you look at ChatGPT, it has so many versions of it. It's really going to be really hard for OpenAI to keep charging the rate they're charging now, in a couple of years because it's evolving so fast and things are really getting commoditized. Whereas when a B2B is
Yeah.
actually much much more profitable because it actually can be applied in so many different spectrum, different verticals to really help companies to reduce their headcount or to improve the efficiency. We can already see that in terms of valuation. If you look at all the AI related companies, Palantir is still trading at 70 times next year's revenue. And the reason why it's able to sustain such a sky high valuation because it's more like a B2B AI play rather than a B2C
Mhm.
AI play. So China is really focused on the
Yeah.
B2B part to really try to like push for the efficiency and the productivity in different like manufacturing space or like designing space. They're also trying to come up with their own chips. So they're doing a lot of things to really ramp up the AI technology, but nobody really knows. Like did point out that we had a gap for a long time, and yes, like the valuation gap has always been there. But I think the past few years it was the highest ever. Now I think it's not about if we're gonna have the gap, or it's all about is the gap going to expand or is it going to shrink. So in my opinion, I think the gap is going to shrink because of what's happening in the U.S. and China. So that makes Chinese investment a little bit better compared to what it was in the past. And also because the regulation is being more is tightening. So in China, you're not gonna have like in the past, if you invest in Chinese stock in the 2010s, it's probably 7 out of 10 times it's a fraudulent company. It's gonna be get delisted at some point. And right now you have a lot of legit companies that's actually producing cash flow and revenue growth. That's really going to really compound for the investors over the long term, like Alibaba, companies like Baidu, like ByteDance. So all those companies are really building quality investments compared to the ones in the past. I think that's the major difference here. So you want to see if the gap is going to get
Yeah.
shrinked or get expanded in the future. That's what I'm looking at.
Amazing,
That's
amazing.
great. I don't
Go
I don't know
ahead.
if Max has any comments. Otherwise, I wanted to touch on EVs because I think you and I talked about this, and obviously Tesla is more than an EV company. But the company that I've been following, I was just a few weeks ago in Dubai, and I saw BYD everywhere, which is the competitor for Tesla, and they keep growing. I just saw an article this morning. I don't know if anyone can find it, but BYD's winning streak isn't over. It just looks like they're growing super fast. Are they getting, from your perspective, are they getting support from the government over there, or is it just a much better electric company? What's your view on that?
Yeah, again, I'm no expert in EVs, but I do know BYD. Yeah, it's very very popular, the number one most popular vehicle in China right now. Actually, if you go to China, I'm sure some of you have been to China. If you order like Didi, which is the Uber in China, most of it is equipped with BYD, right? The thing about BYD, yes, they do get a lot of like, government support, and all the EV companies in China do. You know, that's why they're able to produce vehicles at such a low cost and still be able to make a free cash flow. So government support is a very essential part. I think that's not going to go away in the foreseeable future because one of their main goals in that sector is really to push EVs, to all countries across the globe. Like EVs, like you can see, BYD's market share in Europe has outpaced Tesla like by a lot just over the past 2 years. And one of the reasons they're so affordable is because they're vertically integrated. BYD started out as a battery company. So now they really have all parts of the manufacturing process where they are able to cut costs from all different angles. And that's also why AI comes into play in the B2B scenario, because AI can help them to really kind of just make their supply chain more efficient and more productive, also at the same time reducing the cost of the components. So we can see that cost to continue to go down. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't know how the future holds. I do think in terms of valuation, if you can tell, like BYD is still much cheaper than Tesla. Not saying that Tesla is a bad investment relative to BYD. It's just you have to assess valuation. And then you look at the numbers, and then maybe you can incorporate some of the stories like robo taxi, see like what valuation makes sense to you. But for me, I wouldn't buy Tesla shares.
Yeah.
That's just my point of
Absolutely.
view.
And
Yeah.
I had a few
Okay.
questions for you, Ben, in regards to just in general. I think I asked Max the opposite side of the question. It's not about EV, just going veering a little bit. You said there was valuation gap between obviously Chinese, you know, equities or whatever, and the U.S. Do you see over the and to the end of the decade until 2030? Do you see Chinese indexes outperforming U.S. or um, how do you see that playing out?
So one of my investment criteria is I don't look at things more than like what across like 5 years time horizon. I look at things from like a year or 2 year perspective because just things change so fast. A lot of things happen you just can't predict. Like the Trump policies and all those things that happen in the macroeconomic scale, it's really hard to make a projection 5 years out. So I try to
Absolutely.
do like a 2 years out scenario. But I do think the Chinese stock market is going to outperform the U.S. market over the next 2 years. In
Okay.
5 years, I really don't know because we're going to have a different administration in 5 years. Who knows what's going to happen? If the war's going to stop. Who knows where AI is going to be in 5 years? So I can't make that prediction. That's just too far out of my capability.
Absolutely, and I love that answer. Now I know I asked for Loco briefly. I don't think you have any background in crypto, if I'm not mistaken. Do you hold any crypto yourself? And then two, I mean, where do you see it in like the traditional investment portfolio? Do you think like 1 to 2%? Like not at all. Do you have any strong opinion on that?
I don't have a strong opinion on crypto. First of all, I want to say I know everybody here, except with the exception of me, are Bitcoin like crypto investors, right? So I'm here to offer a different perspective. So I'm not here to try to tell you to short Bitcoin or sell it. But I just want to give you an opposite side of the view because I think when it comes to investing, it's always good to listen to both sides of the story.
For
You
sure.
have to understand when you get bullish on something, it's very easy for you to get emotionally attached, and then you're gonna fall into confirmation bias. You're gonna keep looking for evidence to buy something, right? So what I can offer you is the opposite side of the argument where if you see makes sense. Um, the reason why I have never been a Bitcoin investor, I definitely missed out, a multi-bagger opportunity, was because I would never be able to value this thing reasonably. So for me to invest in something, first of all, I have to understand the business. Second of all, I have to reasonably value that thing from a fundamental perspective. I have to be able to use like a comparable or discounted cash flow analysis to see how much that thing is worth at a certain point in time. For Bitcoin though, it's really a numbers game, right? You can say Bitcoin is worth 100K or 200K, even a million, or like a microsailor said, this thing is going to go to the moon. Like, who knows, right? It's just hard for me to put a number on it. So I'm not comfortable investing in something that doesn't have a very strong intrinsic value. Um, so that's the core of my investment strategy. Is really to, invest based on fundamentals, not the noises or the technical buy and hold. So a lot of people argue to say that Bitcoin is valuable because there's only limited supply of 21 million Bitcoins out there, and the demand can go up as the supply is stagnant and the prices go up. That's a good point, but I can say the same thing to a lot of public traded companies like Berkshire Hathaway, right?
Yeah.
It's a company that doesn't really issue new shares, and as a matter of fact, they're buying back shares every single year. So what I can say the supply is actually going down. So as more people start to trust in Warren Buffett, want to buy Berkshire Hathaway, their share is going to be worth way more. So I don't think that that's a good argument for me to invest in Bitcoin. That's why I never invested in it. Um,
Absolutely. Now, I want to direct the question more towards Max because I think you and Max are alike in many ways when value investing. I know Max is a big, huge fan of Warren Buffett as well. Max, where do you think, for you, when you first pulled the trigger at Bitcoin below 700, ETH below 7, whatever, where does that quote unquote fundamental value derive for you when it comes to Bitcoin and ETH?
Yeah, well, uh, again, Ben makes a good point, but I think what everybody, myself included, everybody I've ever met in Wall Street, no matter what they are, trader, investor, value guy, not a value guy, growth guy, technical guy, fundamental guy, bottoms up, tops down. There's names for all of them, and whoever falls in each of those categories, we all have one weakness, and it's all the same weakness, and this is it. We think that all the other guys really don't do it right, and therefore the right way to do it is the way we do it, and the we means whatever we do, right? So the fundamental guy is pretty sure that fundamentals is really what keeps you out of places like Bitcoin. And the technical guy is the guy that says, well, NVIDIA at $6 wasn't a good deal yet. The point is this, and this is going to sound harsh, but it's something we all have to admit. Not fucking one of us knows what's going to happen tomorrow about anything.
Yeah.
Not one. All of this, all of everything everybody ever talks about, of how they frame what they believe the future is going to be, is a guess. Now, the reason we use the tools, and it's all those things I just described, all those dozens of different ways to look at things, the reason we do that is because there's always a process when someone gets into this business, and that is that they find what makes them comfortable. And it allows them, in their mind, to control the chaos of what we call basically fucking looking into a crystal ball and deciding that we know how to read it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that.
So, what we're really doing when we describe how we do things, what we're really doing is we're saying to ourselves and everybody else, hey guys, this is a fucking madhouse. Nobody knows what the future is. There's not a single one of us that does. But the way I frame it, and I'm just using the word I for anybody who's saying it, the way I frame it using this particular set of tools, here's my opinion of what the future will look like. All we're doing is we're trying to create in our mind a pathway that we think we can describe to someone else.
For sure. And I do see you guys in the comments asking questions. We will get to those. This is some amazing conversations going on. I love that answer, Max. Let me see if there's anything pertaining to what we just said.
that's a lot of wisdom coming from 42 years of investing experience. Love that.
Thanks, man.
Hell yeah. For Loco, anything else as far as the stuff we were just talking about? This,
Well, so yeah, no, definitely. I wanted, so as you guys heard I guess the position Ben has in crypto, and we always talked about this. I think it's been years, Ben. You and I talking about Bitcoin, and in some cases, I believe I've given you good points on. I believe back in the 2022 bear market when everyone was bearish, it was a good time to buy, etc. But yeah, you still told me that it was very difficult to justify for your fund and investors to buy an asset you can't value. But anyways, aside from that, I guess going back to the US and
Hey,
macro side of
hey,
things, this is where you focus most of your time. I wanted to hear your thoughts on how you currently position, and not to disclose any positions in anything, but whether you're long or short. I know you're mostly long, but if you can kind of like give us an idea of how you currently position in your fund or personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share with some guys some of my insights. So I think Fernando, you already know we had this conversation last year. I actually been short since pretty much before the presidential election. Actually, we started out the year about we are definitely net short start a year. About I think it was like 30% net short. Right now we're about market neutral as the market already down about over 10%. We still have some short positions. I can actually disclose some of them. We still have short positions in MicroStrategy. We have short positions in Palantir and some like high flying tech companies here and there. But we also build some long positions in companies that we believe can benefit in the long term that have good fundamentals. They're just temporarily hurt by all the noises in the market. So as of right now, we are I think long term we're still bullish on the US market. We think like, it's still the best place to invest when it comes to innovation, when it comes to high growth opportunities. But in a short term, like we are pretty bearish for a number of reasons. First, I think there's a pretty big paradigm shift from both monetary easing, quantitative easing and physical easing. From we have more like a neutral monetary stance and a fiscal tightening cycle, and this only just started, and I think that's gonna have drastic effect on the valuation of stocks. So we're seeing that happening. We see a lot of valuation compression happening just over the past month and a half. Some companies see their valuation drop about 40% peak to draw. So I think that's just a part of the cycle. I think there is going to be a lot of opportunities to be able to invest in companies at cheaper valuation, but at the same time, I think there's still going to be a lot of air coming out of the bubble. Oh, I do think there's a bubble in the US, especially when it comes to tech and AI companies. Some of the valuation just way too stretched. Look at a Palantir. It was a company that's growing at a 25% year over year, but the revenue it was trading at what like 80 times 2025 revenue. You can't see that kind of valuation multiple unless it's in the bubbles stock market, because there's so much expectation built into it, and we have seen it time and time again. I'm pretty sure Max know this over the past 40 years. Every time there's innovation, the expectation always goes faster than the actual fundamental improvement, because it does take fundamental to improve. It takes time. It takes time for innovation to really catch up with the expectation. When there's too much expectation built into it in a very short period of time, the air is going to have to come out, in one way or another. And one of the examples I always use is what happened during the tech 2000 internet bubble. Cisco share price went from $8 to 110 in a matter of 2 years, from 1998 to 2000. It was the largest cap company in the world, worth over $500 billion in 2000. And what happened after was that the share price dropped 95%, and it hasn't even recovered after 25 years. So I use that as an example because, what happens when the animal spirit goes way far beyond what actually should be worth for a company. If you look at the AI sector, Goldman Sachs estimated $250 billion AI. AI entire sector, just how much the entire sector revenue is going to be in 2025. So it's still less than 1% of the GDP, but it's pretty much it's driving the market left and right. Like anything happens in AI, it's going to take the market up and down a couple $1 trillion. So there's just too much concentration in a very small group of companies and a very small group of sectors. And that's for me is of a sign of a high risky environment where I don't want to be invested in those sectors. I want to be out there and then maybe buy something that I think is relatively ignored, that's like reasonably priced,
Mhm.
that it can withstand a potential recession or potential drawdown.
Those are awesome insights, man. I really appreciate. First of all, you making the time, and and you being able to share this with us. But I guess it's getting close to the hour. I know you have to jump here soon, Ben. But I wanted to ask you one more thing. So you're saying that currently you think we're going to have a little bit more of a pain in the U.S. stock market, or you think this is a good buying opportunity long term, and we're going to end up the year, either higher or close to where we were a few months ago.
I think it all boils down to your time horizon. If you have a really long time horizon, any time is a good investment time. Is a good time to invest as long as you buy high quality companies, right? But if your investment horizon is 1 or 2 years, I wouldn't say right now is the best time to buy. I do think there's way more to go down. I think a lot of things are slowly being priced in, but not fully priced in. Like according to what I've seen in the company's financial reports, Lululemon just came out with terrible guidance, and that actually happened to a lot of companies across the board, like Nike. I saw that Home Depot, even like Target and Walmart. It's the consumers are really not spending money as much as people expected. So I think we have to wait and see what are the impacts from tariff, because the tariff were announced, but they were not built into the financial yet. So I think there's still one more leg to come when it comes to how that impacts companies' financial statements. We have to wait to Q2 to see what real impacts are. And also, we still have to see the inflation numbers. Like the inflation number came out today, and it was a little bit higher than people expected. But it's not terrible, 2.8% core CP inflation. But we still have to see if the train is going, which direction the train is going, to really make a good assessment of where is the good time to invest. But right now, I'm leaning towards bearish. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go, but before that, we have a question from one of our members, which, by the way, we just crossed 1.1 thousand listeners. So I think definitely, Ben, you have a lot to do with this. And but the question is, if you could go back in time to when you started your investing, or I guess your fund, what advice would you give to yourself? That's the question.
Oh wow, that's a hard one. Um, I think it would be try to make as many mistakes as you can, but make it in a smaller scale. So I think
Mhm.
the best lessons are from the mistakes that hurt the most, right? So try to reduce the impact of those lessons, but also but at the same time learn from them. Because I think when it comes to investing, if you are always succeeding, you're always making money, you're not going to learn anything. And at the end of the day, when the trend reverses, like what is happening right now, when really the overall theme changes, you don't know how to respond to it, and that's when you lose everything. So I think learn from the mistakes, one step at a time, and don't think you're better than everybody else, because nobody's better than the market. You just have to be very adaptive and also learn along the way. Just always be learning. I think that's probably the most important thing for me.
Absolutely, always be
All
learning.
right.
Sure. Um, Absolutely. I think thank you so much for coming on, Ben. This was probably like the most insightful like conversation we've had so far in like the 6 or 7 months. So you're always welcome on the show. I'll definitely have to talk to Furloco, and you and I will have to connect to get you on another time, especially as this correction in the markets and everything plays out. So you're welcome to stay on as long as you want. And but we really appreciate you having you on, Ben. It was great to meet you.
Yeah, of course, guys. It was a great conversation. I actually got to go. I'll talk to you guys some other time. All right.
Awesome, brother. You have a great
Have
day.
a
All
good
right.
weekend, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ben.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks,
text
bro.
you
Bye.
later. Thanks,
All right.
man.
And
Bye.
hi from memes. I've seen you ask a few questions, brother. We'll definitely get to both of those. I just wanted to hear Ben's closing thoughts there before he got off. But that was amazing. That was great to have him on and have different perspectives. Um, hi from memes says, could China use crypto or blockchain technology as a geopolitical tool to counter U.S. financial dominance? Max,
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on that?
they can get 20% of Bitcoin.
That's how they do it. Just buy the
I think
Bitcoin first.
I think we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
The new arms race isn't a weapon; it's financial.
Yeah.
So the more you become aware of what's happening, the more you realize that our framework of currency is going to change, so much in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years that, the shift is, if you wait too long, But for example, when Ben described, I've not bought it because there's no fundamental reason for me to buy it, or I can't figure out how to value it. I'll tell you when everybody figures out how to value it is when it gets too expensive to say no.
Yeah.
There will be a time, and strangely enough, I described this yesterday in an hour-long talk we did on a fund we're creating to own Bitcoin, and the analysis was this: you have a couple of choices as it relates to Bitcoin. You can buy it now, whenever now is, or you can buy it later more expensively. It's your choice.
Yeah.
Because see,
I think there's, yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, here's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is this number, and we've said this before, this number is going to get so large that it's going to start harming people's ability to understand it. So what you're going to see is Bitcoin is $9,412 today. And then in parentheses, it's going to say per 0.01 Bitcoin. And strangely enough, people are going to be able to talk themselves into the idea that what effectively is, say, $1.5 million a coin is now suddenly making sense. It's making sense. It seems reasonable. And now I understand how it works. Well, it didn't change. Nothing changed. You just changed. So that's what people are going to battle. And we can come up with 900 different arguments, but that will be the battle. The battle is not when does Bitcoin become understandable? It's when you think it's understandable. So you're the one that's changing. Bitcoin's not
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah, for sure. While we're on the chart, Max,
I guess it's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of ignorance, not ignorance, but also like lack of knowledge of how these things work, and
Yeah.
unless you have lived in breath crypto, you kind of like are really out of the loop. But if I understand Ben's perspective, right? Because if you fund, you're a manager of a fund, and you manage someone else's capital, how can you justify 20 to 30% drawdowns? It's difficult from a traditional finance perspective. Whereas when you're buying companies and you offer these, quarterly presentations with reports and everything, you pretty much saying, "Hey, okay, so this is what we expected versus what it is," because it's an actual business. But other than that, the other thing is, it's a pretty, it's pretty interesting to see things like, for instance, like GameStop, right? They announced that they were going to buy a bunch of Bitcoin for the treasury, and the stock was down like 25% in a day yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that there's a lot of hate and misunderstanding of what crypto is, perhaps because of the nature of,
Yeah.
previous cycles with scams, etc.
Sure.
But yeah, overall, it's just interesting to see.
Sure. I think you make a good point. And I think the reason GameStop went down is they sold, well, they didn't sell. They permitted everybody to talk in headlines about how they were going to use their cash to buy Bitcoin. And then the next day they said, oh, we're going to borrow $1.3 billion to buy Bitcoin. So they didn't use cash. They borrowed $1.3 billion. So that's the adjustment in the equity price. See, if he had taken the money out of his cash account, the stock would have gone up another 10%.
you still see this playing out like it did for MicroStrategy?
Um, Look, GameStop is not MicroStrategy.
Of course.
So I would be remiss if I said, oh, yeah, sure, it'll work just like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work like that. I think what Ryan needs to do is get rid of his crappy cash and buy Bitcoin, and then his stock will go back up. Because remember, what Michael Saylor did at MicroStrategy was before he went into the debt market, he used every ounce of cash they had.
Yeah.
He he invested the equity value into Bitcoin before he went and borrowed money to buy Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And we just hit the top of the hour. I already have 1.2K. I think that's definitely a 1.2K viewers at some point in the stream. That's a record for us at this point in the stream. Love this conversation we just had. We're going to go into more crypto specific stuff now after our guest has left. Alpha Bell, you've been asking this question for a bit. I don't want to neglect the chat. I do want to go over tariffs a little bit more just in depth in a second, but he asked, how do tariffs impact international trade agreements and global economic stability?
Yeah, good question. Tariffs slow down trade. Well, they have the perception of slowing down trade, and what they're used for is to punish another party until they do what you want them to do. This whole thing, we are a year from now. Here's what we're going to say to ourselves. All of us are going to go, what in the fuck did we spend so much time talking about tariffs for? I spent 19 days of my life worrying about what tariffs meant, because they're not going to mean a fucking thing when we're done. When this fight is over and the ref calls the deal. And by the way, he will call the deal. When the fight is called, here's what will happen. Almost nothing has happened to the United States, except everybody who's scared shitless has sold their stock, stupidly so, but they've done it. And the monetary impact against our GDP will be like you running up to an aircraft carrier and throwing a rock at it. Very minimal damage. Lots of emotional damage, but very little financial damage. In return, what we're going to end up with from China and Mexico and Canada is better deals that drive long-term value in the United States. Period. That's it. That is the only purpose this is happening. And the good news is the United States can afford to be in the fight. The other three guys cannot afford to be in the fight. Period. End of story.
Absolutely. That was a great question, Alpha Bell. I appreciate that. Another base call you dropped. Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you guys all for being in here. If you want to like, retweet, and we don't have the hosts. We do have them tagged. Make sure to give everybody a follow. I already had Max up here on the stream. He's been with us here for a couple months. Great addition. Brought a whole nother dynamic to the stream. Definitely shoot him a follow. Check out his YouTube channel as well. A lot of cool stuff on there. A lot of the stuff we're talking about on here, but more in depth. And then obviously Furloco, Danksy, Rotes, my guys on here from Bridge 3 Labs. Definitely go and check out what they've got going on. Great community they have. It's an NFT project that gives you access to a great community that's not just crypto related, but traditional markets, AI, mining, all this different type of stuff. And then obviously the Boss Man Calls channel, where I spend a lot of my time in, where I post my in-depth analysis, what's it called, write-ups, do giveaways, streams like this sometimes. So definitely check that out as well. For Loco, Max, besides so far it's just the YouTube and the Twitter. Is there anywhere else they can find you?
That's it right now. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And then for Loco, you want to anything updates you guys got going on in the last few weeks or with Bridge 3?
Yeah, to be honest, we've just been very focused on keeping the calm in the Discord. Obviously, people are scared because of what's going on in terms of like their holdings. So we've been pretty mindful about sharing updates on what we're doing, and of course, nothing is financial advice, but just being patient, keeping that kind of like feeling across the board that there's no rush to deploy capital. Stay safe, and obviously, if you have to hold something crypto, is really just Bitcoin, right? Anything else right now, it might be a good time to start adding a little bit, but mostly our, I guess the takeaway to our investors and people that are in our community is to, to be patient and kind of like stay, stay pretty much stable that unless you hold Bitcoin, which is the only thing, whether it goes down or up, that you can kind of like rely on long term. So that's it.
Absolutely. I love that. Max, now that we're on here, and he actually made a good point I want to touch to as well. First of all, what do you make of this dip here? Obviously, we don't want to focus on the short term,
Yeah,
but you were saying something before we got on this call that I thought was super interesting.
yeah. It was buy the fucking dip. No, no.
There
What
we
I,
go. There we go.
what I was saying was, gosh, we were saying a lot of stuff. Which part was I
I
saying?
think just specifically about how this is the dip.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, this. Look, and maybe it's just because I've done this so long. You get a feeling when a market is just done. They're just fucking finished with all the bullshit. The players are done. They're washing their hands of it. They're just uh, they're just saying, you know what? I'm fucking tired of this thing not breaking out. It hadn't followed any of my lines in the sand. It hasn't done anything my chart said. Fuck it. I'm not doing this anymore. And this is where we are right now. You can just feel it. It is. We've filled the gap that we talked about last time. Remember we talked. We I think we talked on Tuesday that Monday, was it a Monday gap? There was a gap somewhere in there that
That
we just,
failed today, right?
right. So that filled today. There's actually still one left down in that CME gap. There's a
74.
Yeah, there's a little $500 area that I think I've said this a few times. I don't know why they would leave that. There's all sorts of trade that people want out of the market down in that little spot, and I I'm still not going to be surprised if that happens. All I can say is this: if you've got, and this is the way you've got to think about this, okay? Uh, Stop looking at the price, because the price is just making you do shit that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And it's making you think stuff you don't want to think. Forget that it cost $83,970 right this second. Well, now it's just $83,979. Well, it's actually $984. You see my point? My point is don't look at that number and say to yourself this: if I've got $1,000 to spend on Bitcoin, well, you got to look at the same way as if you have $1,000 to buy Microsoft. You say to yourself, look, I'm going to spend $100 every 5 days for the next 2 months. And I don't give a shit what the price is. I don't care. What I know is that later down the line, $84,000 or anything close to it is cheap. Okay? That's all that matters. And so if it goes to $74,000 or whatever the final number is, whatever it is, you'll buy a little bit. But think in terms of what you have to put in place, and then think of in terms of doing it in stages. You are never going to find the best day. You're going to find some of the best days. And you're going to average yourself in. And days like today, if you look at that little ticker that's going across the screen here, everything is red.
Yep.
Everything. This is where you back up the truck, because what's everybody else doing? Well, if it's all red, we all know what they're doing. They're selling. Okay. Well, do you actually think the crowd that is selling right this minute, after all this shit, do you think they're the guys that make money? I mean, no, they're not. The guys that are selling today are the guys that have been underwater for 6 months, over leveraged, and they've never fucking made money at all in this business. That's why they're selling. So if you act like the crowd that is selling on the 19th day of the month that's down, well, you're not separating yourself from the crowd. And the crowd does not do well, by the way. The crowd does not do well. Don't follow it.
Yep, like we've gone over a few times. Usually, the strongest days are like within a few days of the worst days. So
Well, look at this chart. Is that a daily chart, by the way?
yeah,
Okay, go back to the day right before that big blue box stuff. Go, little right there. What's that day?
that is Thursday, February 27th.
Okay, the stock market, this coin, this token is exactly where it was on February 27th. But I'm going to tell you something. You feel a shit ton worse than you did mentally then. And it's gone nowhere. The
Yep.
price has gone nowhere. It is the same as it was a month ago. So why is everybody wringing their hands and getting out? It's exactly where it was a month ago. Nothing has happened. Zero. The
Yeah.
only thing that's happened, let me tell you, the only thing that's happened is that little red line up there on the chart didn't work.
Yep.
So everybody thinks, holy shit, it didn't work. I better get out. Well, that's just dumb.
Exactly. Fuck the lines. Let's see. That's something I wanted to touch on technical analysis in a second because we did talk about it on our VC stream, but I think that's something that a lot of people wonder about, especially from a vet like you. Let me see real quickly. The future is here. Yeah, I just want to get into that really quickly. I know we talked about this on a VC stream at one point.
Yeah.
But somebody who's been in the game for a while, like yourself, do you use technical analysis? How do you generally see it as a whole? And what are your thoughts on the technical analysis?
What makes people believe in technical analysis is they look at all the charts where it worked on it,
Hmm.
right? Remember, every analysis, everything Ben just said, which was brilliant, everything you say about technical analysis, brilliant. We have to remember whatever you pick to decide what you think is going on and to decide what's going to make you think that you're comfortable with what you think the future is, whatever that is. I don't fucking care if it's pixie sticks. It could be lanterns in the middle of the night. Who knows? But whatever it is that lets you decide that you're, quote, in control of what you think is going to happen. By the way, that's what everybody thinks.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks that. Whatever that is, well, that's what you use.
For some people, that's not even technical analysis. That's like fundamental stuff
Of
and
course,
all that, right?
it's quarterly reports, and the PE is this, and it used to be this, and right now, like Ben said, hey, right now the PE is at its highest stretch differential. Most fucking people don't even know what that means. I mean, they have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
So all I'm trying to say is everybody picks their poison, you know. But what you got to realize, no matter what poison you pick, that's going to let you walk through this maze and play this game, you got to accept some facts about the game. Okay? The game, first of all, is a nasty, nasty game. I mean, it will drive you fucking crazy. That's the first thing you have to accept. The next thing you have to accept is it's never going to work out as fast as you want it to work out. There's an old saying, we pray on our time, God answers on his time.
Yep.
We look at the market on our time, the market will tell you when it's going to happen. But what happens is we get our mind, whatever we're using, we get our mind too tightly wrapped. We get too tense. That's dangerous because you the odds are you're right. Whatever you're thinking is right, but you think you're in control of when it's going to be right. And you're not. You're not, I'm not, Ben's not, Ferloco's not, Bran isn't, none of us are. We got to be able to let this game play out, guys. You got to let it play out. You got to find a way to mentally understand that you got to quiet all that shit that goes on in your mind. And by the way, when I say your mind, it goes on in everybody's mind. It goes on in my mind. It does everything. The only difference between you and me is that I've done it for so long, I've become numb to the things that used to affect me. And if you can do that, you will do much, much better. It's like down in the South where I grew up, there was this saying like water off a duck's back. Have you ever seen water drip onto a duck's back?
Yeah. Yeah.
It never makes its back wet. It never gets wet. No matter how much water you pour on them, they never get wet. You got to take that sort of psychology into the market. You got to just be water off a duck's back. You just got to let it happen. And if it didn't happen today, well, guess what? You're one day closer to the day it'll happen. But here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that the market will make you pay a price to get the award. And the price is you better fucking hold on.
Better fucking strap in. Absolutely. Frenzy asks, then what's a technical analysis strategy that lines best with what really moves the market? I agree with Max. All of this again is just whether it repeated 100 times in history or not. It's all a way for us to again feel comfortable with it.
Mental
I think
control. That's all this is mental control.
absolutely. What I like to look at is again these different characteristics about corrections that play out over time on the charts. But again, every one of these things is different. Again, I do think looking at consolidation and how most of these corrections end in consolidation, looking at major highs, there's a few things that I think can give you a bit of an edge, or at least put you a proper perspective. But Max is 100% right. There's people who don't even look at charts who have just been buying Bitcoin for the last however many years, letting it play out, and they're fucking extremely wealthy. So all these are just extra tools to again give us.
There's a piece that I don't know if anybody follows Vivek, but you've seen it, Bren.
Yeah.
We've probably all seen it. There's a scroll that he sends out sometimes. There's a wallet that's been buying $30 of Bitcoin a week for something like 8 years. They've just spent $30 a week on Bitcoin every week, and they got $1 million fucking dollars. Do you think that any time they said, well, I don't know how much Bitcoin am I buying for 30? What price is Bitcoin? They didn't. They did exactly what you're supposed to do. You buy $30 and you wait, and you do it again and again and again and again and again. I promise you, if you start doing that right now, you won't care what Bitcoin is doing. You won't care what the line on the chart says. You won't care what Bob said today. You won't care. Well, wait a minute. Why did it go down $9,000 today? You won't care. You bought your $30. That's it.
I think the odds of that person buying $30 worth of Bitcoin per week being Max is at least greater than 3 to 1.
The point is, here's the point. It works. It quiets your mind down. The winners in this game, when we're all done, when we're doing this stream 10 years from now, and Bitcoin is god awful larger than it is right now, when we're doing that, the winner, the winner will have been the person who can laugh this shit off and be patient and just play the game. Your worst fucking enemy is yourself. This is a nasty, nasty game to play with yourself. I promise you, you will lose to yourself. So get away from it. Don't do it. Find another way to understand what's going on. Make yourself do something a little bit at a time and let it unfold.
For sure. Ethan, I think we asked this before too, but Ethan asked, what's the best activity to do when not to spend on the screen? When one wants to spend time off the screen?
Anything that makes you feel good.
Dude, I think you gotta figure that out yourself, right? Go get a
Yeah,
hobby or
exactly.
something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta find something, find a hobby, go work out, go for a walk, go to the beach,
Yeah.
play video games. I don't fucking know. Just don't worry about the market.
Yeah. Anything. For sure. Yeah. No, the gym and exercise and stuff like that's always a good option. But I think anything that just gets you away from not fucking staring all day. Bro, following up the notification on your legend. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Max controlling this stage. Yeah. Let's. What else was I gonna do here? All right. And then yeah, just I think what kind of made me think of the technical analysis thing. You see a lot of people right now saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's under the 200 EMA, like we're
Yeah.
fucked."
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and even
Right.
even quoting people like what's his name,
Yep.
um,
Shift.
Ship, or this is a really legendary guy who's actually like good at trading.
Yeah.
What's his name? Anyways, just what do you say to people like that who use like singular data points to
Don't waste your time.
yeah
I mean, this is look. I'll tell you my opinion of Bitcoin being down $3,300 since I don't know midnight. I don't even fucking know when this thing cuts off, but it's down $3,000 from somewhere. Fantastic. That's great. Buy a little bit of it. I mean, this is wondering. I hope we wake up tomorrow and I hope it's down more on Sunday and Saturday and at 3 in the morning on Monday. I hope people worry about this shit all day long because you'll wear them out. Remember, guys, this is a game. This is the enemy is the seller and the winner is the patient guy. Okay, you're in a battle, and you just gotta you can get out. By the way, you can get out of the battle. You know how you get out of the battle? Just follow the guy that just lost. Just sell, and you're out. You're done. You don't have to play the game. You don't have to fight with anything. You don't have to argue with yourself. You don't have to go, when the fuck is this thing going to do this? Just sell. That's the guy that's selling right now. That's the guy that's selling. And they lost. They lost the game.
for sure. You see a lot of people right now worried because like unemployment's finally like going up, which
Great.
is like
That's great. That's good, guys. You know what happens when unemployment goes up? Rates come down and costs drop. And there are thousands of companies that have been telling you for the last 4 years, you know what? I can't find anybody to fill the jobs I've got. The more we get them out of these fucked up government positions, which were fraud anyway, the more we get them out of doing nothing for our tax money and get them into productive jobs, that'll be fantastic. So what if it takes a quarter or two? Is the rest of your life the next quarter or two? If it is, don't worry about this shit. Go to the beach and enjoy the rest of your life. But if you really have more than the next quarter or two, Why are you worrying about something that's going to be fixed in a quarter or two?
I
Why
think what a lot of people are shitting their pants is because usually unemployment goes up, it creates a recession and like a big dip in risk
bullshit?
equities.
That's horseshit. That's what the media wants you to believe. The
Yeah.
media wants you to believe that every single thing is Armageddon.
Yep. And just because it happened in past recessions, it has to happen this time, or past times.
Look, guys, it's a mind game, and it's nothing but a fuck job. It is nothing but trying to screw you up. There's not one single person I know in the media that's rich. Not one.
Not Becky Quick, she's not rich.
Except the guy that owns the company.
Yeah.
They're just you I know I sound like a broken record sometimes, but 99% of this game is what goes on in your head. Okay? The other 1% is what the market will do. The reason I say that is because after 43 years, I can tell you that the complete 100% of the time that people fail, it's because they sold when they didn't like shit. You can't play this game that way. I don't care what game it is. I don't care if you own Procter and Gamble. It's all the same. It's all the same because it's what's between your two ears that's causing you to perceive it.
Love that. Let's see. What else did I have here? Let's go look at Bitcoin price. S&P's down. That's a daily candle. Yeah, same shit.
Well, why are they doing it? You're going to get right down to the lows of what a month ago. You're going to get down to those lows right before the announcement of the official April 2nd fear.
See, that's what I want to touch on. Okay, cool. So tariff wise, we talked briefly about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got the 25%. Wait, 25%, right on.
Yeah.
Ours. Where are we at tariff wise? I know we talked last week.
Well, notice the press didn't cover this.
Yeah.
And Trump said it twice on live television. The odds are really high that the reciprocal tariffs will be lighter than what I've described. Now, notice no one said a word about that. No one. What? In fact, when I heard him say it, I almost wrote to Brent and said, see, we just said this on the stream. We literally just said this.
Yep.
So what you're going to get on Tuesday is this big buildup. And my hunch, now, obviously, guys, this is just me projecting a future that none of us knows. Okay. So understand that first. But my hunch would be this. Okay. You're going to get to April 2nd, and Donald Trump is going to proudly tell you the things that have been getting accomplished for the last few weeks behind the scenes, and no one talked about it. And then you're going to hear something like this. After he's going to list all the successes, he's going to say something like, and therefore, while I know everybody on Wall Street was scared that we were going to place 25% max tariffs on everything from all three countries today, what I've decided I'm going to do is and I'm just guessing here, guys, on these 12 categories, I'm going to give them another 45 days before I do anything. And on these four categories, I'm going to start a 12% tariff instead of 25. But I'm going to give them another 45 days to discuss things, and then maybe we even make that less or take it off completely. In other words, what he's going to kind of show you is all the areas that he thinks he's getting success on, he just needs a little more time. And the areas that he's not happy with what they're saying to him, he's going to put tariffs on. But he's just going to put a little tariff on because he's almost there. He's almost there, but he's got to beat him over the head a little bit more. So you got to understand how they're playing this game. It's not the way these fucking morons in the media are telling you it is. Who put it this way? Who's richer? All the people telling you shit in the media or everybody that works at the White House?
White House.
So listen to them. If you want to get rich. Now, if you want to be fucking poor and lose your money, then listen to the media. But you do have to pick. You have to pick. And then here's the tough part. After you pick, you actually have to ignore them. No matter what. You can't pick parts of them. You can't say, well, Mike, you're a fucking idiot. I kind of like what he just said about that because it agrees with what I'm afraid of. Well, guess what? That is the one thing you shouldn't listen to.
For sure. I'm looking in the chat right now. Someone says, can we look at ETH, SUI, Sol? Yeah, we'll look at that in just a second. Again, generally, all of those are in the top 50. All of those are good coins. Once Bitcoin does recover, I think all of those are good buys.
Look, guys, the uglier this gets and the more stressed the market gets and the more ugly that people get in their perception, the more you're going to be able to throw a dart. I mean, we are looking at things that major coins, I mean major important tokens with real platforms and real value and lots of years, you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 times. So thank your lucky, I don't care who your God is, but whoever it is, thank him or her. Thank them for what's going on. Because if you will be patient, in a couple years, you'll wake up and your life will have changed. And it's all thanks to how fucked up people feel right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is stuff, literally the stuff we were praying for like years ago about tokenization. And this is even way past even what people were talking about a few years ago. So I 100% agree. If we could just be patient, we're in for a great future. Frenzy says, Max, how might the US's alleged accumulation of Bitcoin affect its financial relationships with others?
It'll make us much more powerful. I think Saylor was correct when he said the winner of the current arms race is going to do one of two things. They're going to sell their gold and buy Bitcoin, or they're going to print their own currency and buy Bitcoin. Either one of those actions, either one. You see a country do that. Whoever does that wins. And when it happens, guys, it's kind of, I think we referenced in one of the streams, this is really an old comment, and it's probably because I'm old, but I remember the first guy that ran a 4-minute mile. And by the way, no one had ever done it in competition. Think about that. All the people that ran miles, no one ran a 4-minute mile. But you know what happened right after the first guy that ran a 4-minute mile? Do you know what happened? Suddenly, apparently, every fucking runner in the world got faster because all sorts of people started running 4-minute miles. Why am I pointing that out? Because here's what's going to happen. The first country who says, by the way, we just added $5 trillion to our currency stack, and now we own, I don't know, pick a number, 11% of Bitcoin. It is game over.
How do they even get that much like at one time though? Just like
they just print it.
The Bitcoin.
Oh,
OTC. Like, is there even that much available to someone?
No, there probably isn't. But I'm sort of making part of it up.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is they'll either buy it, but remember that's the supply shock that everybody's warning, because someone will do that.
Yeah.
And that will be the supply side. They will say, "Wait a minute, you mean I can't buy $5 trillion of Bitcoin? What do you mean I can't? I'll offer. Here's $5 trillion. Who wants to sell?" And that's when you're going to see the God candle. That's when you're going to see something that you're going to go. The, let me put it this way. When that happens, you will see a candle on the chart that will cause you within 24 hours to make the following statement. Man, I hope fucking Bitcoin will correct like 20%. In other words, you will wish immediately that it'll come down a little. Now think about that. Think about that, because you know I'm right. That's why you have to be patient.
For sure. Dragon says this is the hardest fucking game to play in the world, but also the most rewarding.
Yes, true.
Yep, it's a correlation. It's like that for a reason. Soul says, not sure if this was answered already, but with having AI having mass adoption, is there any AI coins you're looking at?
I would go to here's what I would do for AI. I would go through the list of the top 200 coins, and I'd pick 5 because they're all going to win.
Yeah, I think like we were saying, you could just throw a dart at like the top
Yeah.
5 or 10.
Yeah.
I think,
Look, at this point, number 1 to 200 is your Easter basket, so to speak, and all the eggs you're going to watch, and they're all going to be great eggs. Okay, all of them. They'll all be worthwhile owning for the next 5 years.
I like that.
So pick some. Pick what, it doesn't matter. Just pick some.
Yeah. Yeah. So like just to name a few that are already there, like Tau, Render. There's a few of them that are
Isn't
there.
there
But
pin, what does pin do? Isn't
deep
pin,
the pin. It's like D-pin, isn't it?
okay? What is how about PAL? Isn't PAL is one, right?
Tau.
PAL, PAAL.
Oh yeah. Pal's more of an AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pal AI is an
PAL's
AI.
a good one.
Yeah.
PAL's one. I bet you PAL's at least a 20.
20
At least.
Xer, 20 bagger.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Don't need to go crazy down the risk curve for it either. Love that.
Yeah, you don't. That's what I'm saying, guys. One thing you can be thankful for in the trashing of the market is it allows you to come up the curve and be in the places that all the institutions are going to be in.
Before they bought them all.
Right. You don't have to go to all the coins where your buddies go, you bought what? I never heard of that one. Well, it's 11 days old and it does this.
Is this like the most telegraphed, easy like investment like ever? Like you're saying, all the institutions are talking about this thing.
This is a layup.
It's a layup, yeah.
Yeah. This is we're getting a lot of really deep token programs that are sort of like, you got to be kidding me, and for people who've been around a long time, you sort of start going the other way. You go, my God, I can't even believe this, and then it's a different kind of mind game that you get fucked up by. That's why I say you just got to stop. I think the best advice to anybody who wants to be a good investor long term is this: stop thinking, because that's what gets you in trouble. Just stop. Just decide if you believe in current cryptocurrency or not. If you believe in cryptocurrency or not is the decision you need to make. If the answer is yes, then wait. If the answer is, I sort of think so, then get the fuck out, because you're not going to win. And if it's no, well, then you're not here anyway.
Yeah, I feel like that's most people's problem. Like I know so many smart people in crypto just think themselves out of.
They just
everything.
get overhyped. They just overdo it. It's like an engine that's idling, and then they put it all the way to the floor and they blow it up.
Yeah, like the bell curve meme. It's like
not anybody's fault. It's them. It's we choose to do it. We destroy our ability to see it clearly by overthinking it. I mean, seriously, do you actually think that Michael Saylor cares what it's selling for?
No.
They don't give two shits about what it's selling for. Do you think? Do you think Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon are sitting in New York and going, "Wait a minute, what? Bitcoin is down $3,000 today"? No, they're not saying that.
Alpha Bell Dark says, I really want to win so hard it drives me crazy, but I'm calm. That's what's up. Yeah, you got to have ambition and you want to keep learning, like Ben was saying, but day to day, stay calm, not focusing so much on the charts. Mr. Random says, fear, fake evidence appearing real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crypto King says 1.5 here. Y'all subscribe to Max's YouTube. Yes, definitely everybody do that. You're already on Twitter. Definitely follow everybody on the panel here. This year, I really love today's conversation. We're gonna have more, not only smart people like Ben, but other people not only to share their analysis but their stories. I think there's a lot of untold stories in crypto that need to be told, and we're gonna have more guests on and everything like that. I appreciate you guys for all being on. I do want to go over NFTs here in a second. Rotes, are you with us? And how you feeling, bro?
I'm here and I'm doing all right.
All right.
Everybody send my boy Rotes here some well wishes. He's been pretty sick the last few days, as you can probably tell, but he's still here, and I love that. Thank you for being here, brother. Let's see.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." Justin says, "What's up, B3O? What's up, Justin?" Max sounds a bit like President Trump right now.
He is President Trump.
Yeah, only legends can, and they are massive.
I'm gonna tell you a quick story. You guys might get a kick out of this.
Let's hear it.
Tom Cruise and I did.
What? Sorry.
I'm serious. I got a big picture of this in my office. But way back when New York was recovering from 9/11, we raised some money with Tom to support a facility that treated firemen and policemen who were getting cancer and terrible things from being at ground zero in 9/11. So we did a lot of stuff for guys. And he called one day and he said, "Hey, War of the Worlds is going to premiere in New York. So I'm going to fly in and you're going to be my guest at the premiere."
Wow.
So we, had to walk through these special areas, and my wife and I, of course, my wife was way more excited to meet Tom than anything else. So we get inside and meet his mom and his sisters, and we all go sit. He walks us. He says, "You guys are going to sit here, and I'm going to be right there." And guess who walks in right after me?
Who?
Donald Trump. Yeah.
Wow.
So Trump is sitting right behind us. So we're all sitting there chatting, and it's kind of one of those unreal moments, right? So we're all talking, and then right after that, Tom goes back outside, and what I didn't know is 5 fire engines had lined up in honor of all the stuff we had done for firemen. And so he climbs on top of one of the fire engines and rides in to the premiere with the captain of the New York Fire Department.
Wow.
And so right after that, he says, "Hey, Mike, my mom wants you to come out with us for dinner." And I said, "Well, I hate to say this, but I got to do something else." He said, "No, I meant in LA." And I said, "You want me to come to dinner in LA?" And he said, yeah, my mom wants us all to go to dinner. And I said, "Okay, first of all, just so you guys know, his mother is his manager.
Oh,
and
really?
And his sisters are his administrative office workers."
Oh, wow.
So we get out to LA, and I swear it was so weird because, well, first of all, he puts me up in the Scientology hotel, which
I was about to ask about, did he try to get you into Scientology?
It scared the shit out of me. So, but he introduced me to everybody, all the David that runs the place. I mean, I got to. But here's the point: he's like a completely fucking normal person. He just talks to you like everything's normal. and his mom is the same, and his sister's the same. And we have dinner, and we're talking about, just normal. What'd you do in school? And oh, that was funny. And it was just so wild that it was just like going out with your buddy.
Yeah, I've heard he's super charismatic, remembers everybody's name,
Oh yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Remembers everything.
I
And
heard he sees somebody on somebody like something to describe them and says like Tom red shirt, and he like fucking remembers people,
yes,
everybody's name that
yeah,
way.
he plays the game of that. But
Crazy
so
story.
he says after dinner, he goes. After dinner, he goes, Mike, do you ride motorcycles? I said, yeah, I have a Harley. And he said, well, I got an extra bike. We're going to ride around and say hi to some guys. And we go to like 5 places and meet just people that were, really, really powerful in Hollywood and all the guys he works with. So anyway, it was a neat story. The point is I did get to meet Donald Trump on the same night, but
Amazing.
it was funny.
Thank you for sharing that story. That was great. Ethan says, "Do you
Sure.
think the CME gap strategy always works?"
I'm sorry, say.
He said, "Do you think the CME gap strategy always works?"
I think gaps in the market are designed to be filled. That's why you don't see many of them. Is they create. Remember, there's a rule in markets. Markets will go wherever trade is. Okay. Everybody knows that gaps are where all the stops are. Everybody knows that. I don't even know why people put their stops there because everybody knows that they're there. But that's why gaps are filled. They go take all that trade out and then they go back in the other direction.
Cool. What's up, Justin? Appreciate you for being on. I just want to catch up with the chat here. The media is full of doom messages. If you listen to the media, you'll never make money. Yeah. Want to be poor listening to the fucking media. Yeah. About the tariffs, what is the effect on the stock market, Max? I think we already went over that.
Well, it's overdone. And to show you that from a logical point of view, as of right now, if Donald Trump announces, let's pretend everything I just said was 1,000% incorrect, and we get to Tuesday night and he says, well, we fucked up everything. I wasn't successful in any of the items I worked on. We accomplished 0. The Avenger team failed at everything we've done for the last 3 weeks, and max tariffs are going on everybody. Okay, so that won't happen, but let's pretend it does. If that were to happen, then for the next 12 months, right? 12 months has to go by. So we're now talking April 2nd, 2026. By the time we get to April 2nd, 2026, max tariffs on everything we trade, it's $545 billion in tariffs. 545. Now, think about it for a second. 545 billion of a $30 trillion stack of money, which is what the economy is 1.8%. 1.8%. Now, 545 billion sounds like a big shit ton of money to me. I mean, that's a big number and it scares everybody. So here's the logic of the stock market. Since this market started going down and chop around and bounce and then come back down and then chop around and bounce and then come back down and chop around some more, all that shit that has gone on has erased $6.7 trillion of value. So, in the brilliance of the stock market, since it is afraid of a $545 billion number, which would have to be a year from now, right? Remember, the number isn't real until a year from now. So, because we were afraid of that, we decided that it would be smart to erase 13 fucking years of it ahead of time. 13 years of tariffs. That's what you get when you divide 545 into 6.7.
Justin says, I remember on our previous stream on Tuesday, we were supposed to have a guest called Ben. Yeah, we had Ben on. He was on for the first hour, Justin. So definitely, it was great. That was like one of the best conversations we had on the stream. So definitely check that out. Everybody's asking about ETH and why I feel so strongly on this next run up. Really, there's a number of reasons. I think we're like we've highlighted on this stream. The world is going to be tokenized.
Yep.
Everything that we're seeing regulatory wise is kind of leading the way for that. And I think Ethereum, simply put, like a real basic answer, I think Ethereum is going to be the biggest benefactor or the biggest winner from this regulatory clarity due to its the biggest L1 network, time in the game, network effects. We have institutions, BlackRock already building on it. All these different things that I think Ethereum, whether it outperforms Bitcoin or Sol or not, I think it's severely undervalued in the short term as well as I think long term with a tokenized future and a world that's going to be on chain. I think Ethereum's the biggest winner. Simply, a lot of people seem Max right now seem to be like kind of cowering away or kind of being like Bitcoin's the only thing they can trust right now, completely throwing ETH and Sol out the window. You
Yeah.
still see ultimately ETH and Bitcoin as those two set it and forget it, just continuing to buy,
Yeah.
kind of the same thing as Bitcoin.
Try to think of this this way. Um, let's say that you are in your garage, and I'm sorry if this is a stupid story, but let's pretend that you're in your garage and you're working on the engine of your car. And you got all the pieces out on the floor. And, like me, you probably have no fucking idea how to put it back together. And you decide that you're going to put it all back together. And the block, the most important piece of your engine, the base of your engine is Bitcoin. Think of it that way. And then you put it all back together and you realize, wait a minute, I've got like 7 parts on my floor that didn't go back in my engine. Well, your engine's not going to work. It's not going to turn on. What am I pointing out? Every piece of this engine is going to be important when it's all working. Bitcoin is going to be the base, and all these other major coins are going to play a role in the engine. And if they're not there, the engine won't work. You have to understand it in a bigger sense. It is that there's a bigger play unfolding. It's like an orchestra. If you're really good at listening to music, people know when an instrument has gone wrong in an orchestra. They know when someone missed a note. That's the same way crypto is going to work when it's all humming around and everybody doesn't even talk about crypto anymore. They don't even speak about crypto. There will be a period where not a single person is going to talk about crypto. Why? Because it's going to be completely embedded in our life.
It's gonna swallow everything. Everything will be crypto.
They won't mention it at all. Nobody will even talk about it because it'll be in everything.
Hawk, what's up, brother? He said, GM everyone. What's up, Bren? What's up, Hawk? Thanks for being on. We might get a new all-time high in the chat today. Yeah, we have got 1.7, I think 1.8 now towards the end of the stream. Great stream. We'll go on for a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about NFTs with my boy Rotes. Justin says we might. Yeah, I saw that, Justin. Bren, you have an answer? Yeah, no, I did get to that already. Let's see. I want to catch up with the chat. Expecting Sailor on this stream soon. That'd be legendary. Soul says 1.6K.
You guys aren't going to believe this, but I sent a FedEx package to Michael Saylor today.
Ooh, can I ask what it contained?
One of our video boxes and a proposal to do a joint venture on the fund we're raising.
Wow, that'd be amazing. Hell yeah. Let's see. Lonely Boy says get well soon. Yo, Tom. Michael seems to be really, really gracious with his time. You see him on a lot of podcasts and interviews and stuff.
Yep.
You never know. Never know. Justin says, Max, you know Tom Cruise in person? No way. Yeah, I'm just catching up to some of these.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'll take a picture of the picture I have in my office, and we'll show it on the next stream.
Yes, please do. Maybe I didn't hear clearly, but I think you just heard Max say Trump was beside him. Yeah, we did. He did say that. Um, Max, you're a true legend. Max, you were in New York during 9/11.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We bad time, but we had a letter that we framed and put it in the lobby of our office. One of our analysts had a buddy. He was getting married the Saturday after 9/11,
Ugh.
and he sent a note to an email to the all the people on the in the wedding party to tell them where their tuxedos were and what the order number was, and they had to pick them up by Friday at noon. And he sent that, and uh, we unfortunately never saw him again. And the timestamp of his email was the exact moment that the first plane hit the building.
Wow.
So we framed it, and it's still sitting in the office today.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah, we wrote down, all the guys in the office wrote down on a yellow pad of paper the names of the guys and ladies we worked with in the towers while it was unfolding, and we could only hope we'd be able to see them again. And it ended up with 78 names that we weren't able to see again.
It's terrible, man.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
In fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but Lutnick, who is on the administration,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know his story.
Yeah. Insane story. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. But I remember the next day how a lot of firms on Wall Street donated employees so that that firm could exist.
It's incredible. Mr. Random Stuff says, "Bro has a crazy memory." Yeah, Max does have a crazy memory. I don't, though. I don't know how you could really forget that.
Yeah, well, you really remember some of the things only because of their emotional charge when it unfolded.
Absolutely, yeah, makes sense. Wow, this chat is absolutely fucking lively today. We appreciate you guys the entire time it's been going. Alphabet said, "Thanks for answering, Max." Yeah, of course. Started buying Bitcoin every paycheck after starting to listen to Max, regardless of the price. Let's go.
That's fantastic. Who said that?
Still tripping 805.
Fucking brilliant. You are going to be very glad you did that.
Yo, I missed Ben talking. Yeah, definitely check out after the stream's over. The first hour Ben was talking, it was a good conversation with having somebody who's on more the international side. We talked a bit about China, and tariffs, and he had a bit of a different view, but him and Max also had a lot of stuff they agreed on. So it was a good convo. ETH is the mother coin. Yeah. Thanks for your rich perspective, Max. He said demand must always meet up in crypto market. Supply and demand aim to reach equilibrium. Yeah. Brand, my network was interrupted. I feel like, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. You got interrupted. Yeah, no, I was just saying, Justin, simply ETH, despite the last few years of price action, I think the regulatory clarity we talk about and all this stuff happening behind the scenes, institutional wise, all that, is going to benefit Ethereum, the blockchain, and ETH, the token, the most. Just with its network effects, BlackRock, all these different things already building on it. I think this next leg up, which will be fueled by this regulatory stuff we're talking about and everything else going on, is going to benefit ETH the most. Does it outperform Solar Bitcoin? Who knows? But I think it's going much fucking higher from here. So
I'm gonna tell you two stories that may help you in your battle mentally with Ethereum. And here's the two stories. Okay, the first story is Apple. Um, there was a period in time for roughly 3 years where everybody who thought they were brilliant was telling everybody else on Wall Street that Apple was not going to make it, and everybody was betting on the day that they would file bankruptcy because, and I'm quoting, their technology was shit. Now, Notice everybody's saying Ethereum is shit. Okay, so if you believed 3 years of being told that Apple was going to go broke and it was merely a matter of time, who do you think won that game? The guys that listened to that or the guys that bought a little bit of Apple every fucking time they heard it? Who do you think won?
The fuckers that kept buying.
Okay, so next story. Next story is about NVIDIA. NVIDIA used to be a game chip company. That's all they did. And let me tell you when they did game chips. They did game chips when fucking weirdos played games. And I mean games that like the dot was bouncing back and forth on the gray screen. That was the game. That was it. Like a ping pong table. I mean, that was the whole game. The point is it was completely useless. And everybody said, you know what they said about NVIDIA? Who in the fuck is going to play games all day? I mean, why in the world would a game chip company be worth spending any time on? I mean, there's just not that many people that play games. And they said that for years. And you know, all that time, you could buy NVIDIA, by the way, the very same NVIDIA, you could buy NVIDIA for somewhere around $5.50 to $7. And that range went on for 2 years. Every day. Oh, that's worthless. Don't waste any time on it. It's not worth it. The technology is shit. So here's the point. Tell yourself that every time for the next 6 months you hear someone say to you, ETH is going to fucking zero, just decide to buy $50 of ETH. Whatever. Buy $5 of ETH. I don't care. Whatever you can afford, buy $5 of ETH. Every time you hear someone say their technology is shit. And I'm gonna tell you that based on the way it works, let's just play Vegas odds. You're 80% gonna win.
Justin says, please share the picture of Tom Cruise. Please. Really need to see it.
I will.
He really wants to see it. Justin, I always see you on the streams, man. I really appreciate the support. It's great to see that, as despite how a lot of people, like Max was saying at the beginning, are checking out right now, to still have an active chat like this is a fucking blessing. I can't imagine where we're going to be at, not just in the size of the streams, but content and different stuff as crypto continues to grow. So we always appreciate you guys being in here. Random stuff says, man, that's terrible. Let's see. I'm about caught up with the chat. Justin says, was really looking forward to hear from Ben. Yeah, he'll be on again. I think we really, as time goes on, I think he had some great insights.
Listen to the recording, right? I mean, they can hear Ben. Just listen to the recording.
Yep. He'll be on future shows eventually too. Justin says, thanks for the reply, Ben. Let's see. Rotes, I know you're not feeling too well, so we won't hold you for too long, but are you still with us? If not, it's all good. You might have gone back to work. Brandon, you talked about everything.
Gone. He's texted in the Telegram chat.
All good. He said, Brandon, you talked about everything becoming NFT soon. Just please describe what it's like with crypto. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. At the end, please describe what it's like with crypto. And everything being an NFT, essentially, we've talked about it before, but contracts, luxury goods, real estate, it's just a better way of doing all these different things. For luxury goods like shoes or for watches, it allows, it's a way to verify the authenticity. A number of different ways that having these RWAs, these assets on chain, to kind of make everything more efficient. For each different sector, it's different. Like for real estate, Max, what benefit do we have from making real estate NFT?
Oh God, lots of benefits. Ease of transaction, ease of moving money, ease of tracking who owns something, ease of making something liquid that typically is not liquid.
Yep.
real estate is an illiquid asset, but if you put it in a token and you can buy, 0.07 of it, someone else will buy it from you when you want to sell it.
Exactly. For each of these different industries, it looks different. With gaming assets, it allows these different assets to be like have liquidity, like Max said, to be able to pretty much trade these different assets on an open market 24/7 on chain that can easily be tracked. Essentially, just making the world easier and more efficient, removing the middlemen in a lot of these different places. Um, but yeah, it's just a better way of doing things. And that's why, it's amazing to see people like Gary Vaynerchuk and others years ago seeing this, and now we're seeing it play out with in the Wall Street firms. Max was saying he thinks that'll be driven hard by, these Wall Street types. So crazy to
Hey
see.
guys, a quick question for you. If I have a picture of Tom and I, how do I put it on the screen? Do I hit share media?
Yeah, you can
I
do
think
share
so.
media, or you
Or
can
you can
share.
just send it to Bren and he can open it.
Okay,
Yeah, I can do that too.
If it's not a nude.
let me do this. Hold on.
That'd be cool.
Also, I gotta hop like relatively soon.
Oh
No
boy.
worries.
Okay, we'll
Uh,
be quick here.
no worries.
Documents.
Why not post it?
Oh, boom. Okay, it's in the Telegram thingy.
Perfect. Let me open it on screen. All right, let's see here. Um, let's see. I want to bring this. Let's just do it this way. Do this. Boom, boom. Let's do a share screen. Share entire screen. And then we'll look here. Pick with Mike and Tom Cruise. Love that. That's sick. That's crazy. What somebody asked earlier, what year was this in?
This was that rescue workers project right there?
Yeah, 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would have been, gosh, I think, because I got a bunch of pictures, but I think this one was about, well, I can tell you when it was. War of the Worlds was really, someone have to look whatever day of the Worlds was
When
released.
was World of the World?
War of the Worlds.
When was World of the World released?
That that week is when he was in town.
It was released on the 29th of June.
29th of June, 2005.
This answer is
Yeah,
from
2005. That's it.
That's amazing. I love that story. Crazy. You've told us a few different stories like that. It's nuts. The panel with Warren Buffett and all that.
Yeah.
Bossman isn't out. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, since Rhodes isn't here to do like more in-depth analysis on NFTs, not much has happened this week. Again, I think all digital assets I think are going to get a run from all this regulatory clarity. I think we have Pudgies and Bored Apes and kind of the leaders kind of pushing ahead right now, which is usually a leading indicator for the whole market going up. So my bags are packed NFT wise. I do think we will, probably see a strong year, but of course, you just got to let it all play out. And yeah, let me look at the chat real quick. What is my mind thinking about Top Gun Maverick right now? Did you see the second?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third one's coming out in a month.
Really? I didn't even know that. That's nuts.
May 26th, I think.
What did you think of the second one?
Oh, I thought he did great.
Awesome.
I thought they did a great job at tying the two stories together.
Nice. About to push at 2K right now. Really appreciate you guys being on. Cruz looks so young in that picture. Yeah, he does. Oh, that's crazy, man.
He was actually heading out to do one of the first Mission Impossible storylines. If you remember, he had almost a shaved head in the first Mission Impossible.
That's right. Yeah. So by that time, Mission Impossible started like real late 90s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like 2005 was probably on like the second, third, fourth one, something like that.
Yeah. Do you know what he bought the rights to Mission Impossible for?
How much?
$10 million.
Oh, he got paid off of that.
Yeah, I think he made that in the first hour of the first movie.
Yeah. Wow, he bought all the rights, so he gets.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's his.
But he does all the stunts himself. So
yeah, he does everything himself. Yeah. there's a scene, and I forget which one, where he's. Do you remember the scene where he's talking to whoever the guy is? That's always the goofy computer freak. That's really
Yeah.
funny as shit. And he's saying, why aren't you turning left? And he said, I'm in a 2-story building or something.
Yeah.
And remember, he has to jump from one to the other.
Uh
He breaks his ankle landing on the side of the building,
Fuck.
which you can see in the movie. You can see it happen. You got to know it happened, but you can see it happen because when he gets up, he has to limp out of the scene. I mean, he didn't stop. He kept going out of the camera shot, so they actually have the camera shot in the movie where he's running away on a broken ankle.
Yeah, Lonely Boy says that was in Dubai, I think.
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
Says, you mean Cruz does his own stunts? I thought only Jackie Chan can do that.
No, he does. He does all his own stunts. He
Does
like
all his own
climbed
stuff.
onto like a side of a plane and like
Yeah.
held on for like
To
dear life.
this day, that's nuts.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
He's like
The motorcycle scene at the end of the last Mission Impossible, where he drives the motorcycle off the edge of the cliff
yeah.
and parachutes into the train. Do you remember that one?
I didn't see the last one, to be honest. But
Okay, watch the last one because he drives a motorcycle off the cliff.
And he really died. That's nuts.
Honestly, knowing that he does his own stunts makes it so much better.
But here's the thing. He demanded that they do 7 takes before it was good enough.
Wow.
He did that 7 times.
Imagine.
Imagine getting set to drive off the edge of a cliff on a motorcycle and parachute down into the valley 7 times before you're happy with the shot.
Fuck. People are too lazy to fucking do whatever. That's nuts. Crypto King said subscribe to your YouTube now, Max. Bren, you really need to see the most recent one. It's really great. Yeah, I'll check it out. It seems like we have a lot of Mission Impossible fans in the chat today. But I want to do it and wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and give away the giveaway today. Again, I wish you guys were always so active. I wish I could give it to everybody, but today somebody's super active. Let's see who I haven't given it to yet. Let's see. I'm gonna pick it kind of randomly. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Mahudini Rayhan. I don't know. You guys can't see my screen right now. But the guy with the Giga Chad with the Mog glasses, go ahead and shoot me a DM. Again, I really appreciate you guys all for being active in the chat. I like to give, at least to somebody who I thought was active or providing a lot to the chat today. But every single one of you guys, I appreciate. If you can go ahead and again, retweet, comment on the stream so we can get it out to more people. But we will be back. We do these streams twice a week. Friday today at 10 a.m. and then Tuesday a little bit later, 1 p.m. PST. We're going to continue to put out these streams despite whatever price does, having cool guests, good analysis, all that. Make sure to follow everybody on the panel. And before we sign off, the guys that are left, Danksy, you first. Anything before we sign off?
Nah, just hold on to your bags and lock in.
And Max?
Guys, be patient. Stay focused. Let this stuff not bother you. And have a wonderful weekend.
Of course. Appreciate you guys. Love you. See you guys soon. Late.